Freezing mud squelched between my bare toes. Rain, driven by a savage wind, felt like tiny shards of glass slicing into my exposed arms and back. I stood there, shivering uncontrollably in nothing but my old thin cotton boxers and a t-shirt, the fabric plastered uselessly against my skin. Beside me, my wife Martha, my anchor for 45 years, was trembling so violently I thought her bones might rattle apart, her flimsy nightgown offering zero protection against the furious storm. We weren't camping. We weren't refugees. We were standing on the soaked lawn of our own beautiful home, staring at the heavy oak back door locked firmly against us. And through the rain-lashed glass I saw him. Our son, Kevin. He wasn't shouting apologies or fumbling with the lock. He was perfectly still, bathed in the warm, mocking light spilling from the hallway. His silhouette was rigid, and even through the downpour, I could practically feel the smug satisfaction radiating off him. It was a physical force colder than the wind. Humiliation, sharp and bitter, rose in my throat. Oh, how could our own child, the boy we raised, loved, perhaps spoiled too much, do this? Leave his elderly parents outside in a dangerous storm, practically naked? My mind struggled to grasp the reality of it, the sheer cruelty. Rage, hot and potent, began to bubble beneath the icy shock. He wanted the house, he'd said. He wanted the money. And we were just disposable, standing between him and his desires. But then, through the fog of cold and despair, a single defiant thought sparked. David, our quiet neighbor. The guy Kevin always dismissed as some unimportant paper pusher. Kevin had no clue who David Miller really was. No idea at all. And in that desperate, freezing moment, the thought of David, the real David, was the only ember of warmth I had left. It was the faintest glimmer of hope against the overwhelming darkness. My name is Arthur. Hitting 70 wasn't something I dreaded. Martha and I had worked our entire lives for this phase, for the peace and quiet of retirement. Life before Kevin returned, before that night, feels like a faded photograph from another lifetime now. It was simple, predictable in the best way possible. Martha and I met young, fell in love fast, and married with stars in our eyes and barely 2 pennies to rub together. I poured my sweat and grit into construction management, long hours, tough sites, building things that lasted. Martha dedicated herself to nursing, healing others with a quiet strength and endless compassion that still amazes me. We were savers by necessity, then by habit. Every extra dollar went towards the dream. Not fancy cars or extravagant vacations, but stability, security, and eventually this house. Our house. We didn't inherit it, we bled for it. Found the perfect plot overlooking the valley, spent evenings poring over blueprints, argued over paint chips, and oversaw every nail hammered, every pipe laid. It was larger than we strictly needed, maybe a touch grand, but it wasn't about showing off. It was a monument to our partnership, our perseverance. It represented decades of shared sacrifice and a promise of comfort in our later years. We filled it with warmth, the scent of Martha's Sunday roasts, the comforting tick of the grandfather clock in the hall, the echo of Kevin's childhood laughter, a sound that now felt painfully ironic. Retirement was meant to be our reward. Coffee on the porch watching the sunrise, reading by the fireplace on chilly evenings, maybe taking that cruise to Alaska we always talked about. Small joys deeply earned. We envisioned grandchildren visiting someday, filling the rooms with new laughter. That was the plan. Our neighbors were just neighbors. Polite nods, occasional waves. Pleasantries exchanged over manicured lawns. On one side there was David Miller. Mid-40s, lived alone, drove a sensible car. Always friendly in a reserved sort of way. Helped me figure out why my lawnmower wouldn't start once. Brought over a package delivered to his place by mistake. We knew he worked for the city, some kind of administrative role, we assumed. Never asked specifics. It wasn't our business. He seemed like a decent, quiet man content with his own life. We respected his privacy and he respected ours. Our world felt solid, grounded, the foundation strong like the house itself. We thought we'd built an impenetrable fortress of comfort and security. We never imagined the attack would come from within. The first tremor that unsettled our peaceful retirement wasn't a natural disaster, but a phone call. It was Kevin, our only child. Looking back, perhaps the signs were always there, hints of an entitlement we'd mistakenly fostered. We wanted him to have more than we did, but maybe we gave him too much, too easily. He had a flashy finance job, or so he led us to believe, a sleek apartment downtown that cost a fortune in rent, and a sports car that screamed "look at me" louder than any engine roar. But his voice on the phone that day held a brittle edge beneath the forced casualness. He'd been laid off. Corporate restructuring, he said vaguely. He sounded shaken, but quickly masked it with false optimism about finding something better soon. A few weeks passed. Then came the inevitable request. Could he possibly move back home? Just for a little while, he emphasized. Get back on his feet. Save some money. Recharge. Martha, my dear soft-hearted Martha, didn't hesitate. He's our son Arthur. Of course he can come home. Her instinct was always to nurture, to protect. My gut clenched. A small, nameless anxiety flickered within me. Something felt off. But how could I refuse? He was our child. Family looks after family. It's the unwritten rule, the bedrock of everything we believed in. So I swallowed my reservations and agreed. His arrival felt less like a son returning to the nest and more like an invading force establishing a beachhead. His expensive, modern furniture clashed jarringly with our comfortable, traditional decor, overflowing the guest room and spilling into the den. His gleaming sports car immediately claimed the prime spot in the driveway, relegating my trusty sedan to the street. Initially, there was a semblance of gratitude. He'd offer a half-hearted thanks, occasionally clear his own plate, even attempted small talk about his job search, though details remained frustratingly vague. But the veneer of appreciation wore thin with alarming speed. Within weeks, the gratitude curdled into an expectation, then into a disturbing assumption of privilege. He wasn't a guest anymore. He was acting like the new lord of the manor. He'd leave dirty dishes piled in the sink, assuming Martha would just take care of them. He started helping himself to my tools from the garage without asking, leaving them dirty or misplaced. The expensive single malt scotch I saved for special occasions began mysteriously depleting. He treated our carefully curated home like a crash pad, and us, his parents who had welcomed him back with open arms, like slightly inconvenient hotel staff. The nagging feeling in my gut grew stronger, darker. This wasn't just a temporary setback for him. This felt different. This felt planned. The subtle erosion of boundaries quickly accelerated into a full-blown siege on our peace and comfort. Kevin's temporary stay showed no signs of ending. His job search, if it ever truly existed, seemed to consist entirely of scrolling through his phone while sprawled on our living room sofa. He stopped even pretending to look for work. Our home became his personal playground, his entertainment complex. He took over the main television, the volume always cranked up for hours of violent video games or action movies that rattled the walls and our nerves. Martha's gentle requests for quiet in the evenings were met with eye rolls and dismissive waves. Relax, Mom. Live a little. My attempts at a firmer approach were met with outright hostility. Son, this is our house. We need you to respect our space and our routines. His face would darken, his tone becoming sharp, defensive. God, Dad, lighten up. What's the big deal? I live here now, don't I? It's my house too, practically. That phrase, my house too, practically, became his mantra, a constant, grating reminder of his encroaching presence. It wasn't just words, it felt like he was mentally measuring the place, staking his claim. He started making changes without consulting us, small acts of territorial marking. The perfectly functional shower head in his bathroom was replaced with a ridiculously oversized rainforest model he ordered online, leaving the old one discarded on the floor. He fiddled constantly with the thermostat, plunging the house into Arctic cold or sweltering heat according to his whims, ignoring our discomfort. He even rearranged the furniture in the den to better suit his gaming setup, pushing Martha's favorite reading chair into an awkward corner. These weren't huge things in isolation, but cumulatively, they felt like a deliberate campaign to undermine our authority, to assert his dominance in the space we built. His friends became a regular fixture, loud, boisterous young people who mirrored his casual disrespect. They'd troop in with muddy shoes, leave empty beer cans and pizza boxes scattered around, talk and laugh at booming volumes late into the night, completely oblivious to the fact that elderly people might actually need sleep. Martha would quietly clean up after them, her face etched with a weary sadness that broke my heart. I confronted Kevin about his friend's behavior. He just shrugged. They're just having fun, Dad. You guys are too uptight. I started noticing him spending hours on his laptop, angled away so I couldn't see the screen, clicking furiously. When I asked what he was working on, he'd snap it shut or quickly minimize the window, mumbling something about job applications or online courses. But the way he guarded the screen felt suspicious. Martha still tried to find excuses for him. He's under pressure, Arthur. He's embarrassed about his situation. But her voice lacked conviction. The worry lines around her eyes deepened daily. My own suspicion was hardening into a cold certainty. This wasn't stress. This was strategy. Our son wasn't just acting entitled. He was maneuvering. But towards what? The answer, when it began to reveal itself, was far worse than I could have imagined. The shift from passive-aggressive annoyance to something actively menacing happened gradually, then all at once. Kevin's focus sharpened, lasering in on the one thing that seemed to truly interest him: our money. His questions about our finances became more frequent, more pointed. No longer casual curiosity, but interrogations disguised as conversation. "So, Dad, how's that retirement portfolio looking? You guys invested smartly, right? Must be worth a pretty penny now." He tried to sound nonchalant, but his eyes held a predatory gleam. We'd deflect, offering vague reassurances. "We're comfortable, son. We planned carefully." Our evasiveness clearly frustrated him. His jaw would tighten, a flicker of avarice crossing his face before he smoothed it over. Then the direct requests for money began. Small loans at first. "Hey Dad, can I grab 100? Pay you back Friday." Which he never did. Then the amounts grew. "My car needs new tires, looking at 500 easy. Can you spot me?" Martha, bless her trusting soul, urged me to help him. "He's our son, Arthur. We can't let him struggle." So we gave him some, dipping into the savings we'd earmarked for property taxes or a new water heater. It felt wrong, like feeding a stray animal that was starting to bite the hand offering food. Predictably, it wasn't enough. His demands became bolder, tinged with impatience, then resentment when we finally, firmly said no. We explained that our funds were finite, carefully budgeted for our own needs, our future health care. We couldn't keep bankrolling him. That's when the resentment turned ugly. Sulking silences descended. Snide remarks about how we were hoarding our wealth. "You guys have this huge house, all this money saved up. What good is it doing just sitting there?" One evening I was walking past his closed bedroom door and heard his voice, low and urgent, on the phone. I paused, straining to hear. "Yeah, the asset is rock solid, prime real estate, easily worth 7 figures. Just need to work out the transfer. Parents are getting on, legal options, power of attorney maybe, collateral." My blood turned to ice water. Asset, transfer, collateral, parents getting on. He wasn't talking about a job. He was talking about our home, our life savings, as if they were his to liquidate, as if we were merely temporary obstacles. The casual cruelty of it, the cold calculation, stole my breath. I felt physically ill. His behavior became overtly controlling. He changed the Wi-Fi password, for security he claimed, then made us practically beg for the new one. He started intercepting the mail before I could get to it, rifling through it quickly before handing over only the junk mail and bills. What was he looking for? Bank statements? Deeds? The main TV remote vanished. His broken dad glitching out. "I'll get a new one." He never did. Small acts of sabotage to make us feel confused, dependent, and increasingly isolated within our own home. The veiled threats began, dropped casually into conversation. Looking around the living room one afternoon, he mused aloud, "Terrible shame if something were to happen to an old house like this. Faulty wiring maybe? A hidden gas leak? You guys have good insurance, right? Fully comprehensive?" His eyes met mine, and there was no concern there, only a chilling emptiness. It wasn't a hypothetical question. It was a threat wrapped in faux concern. Martha finally saw it too. The last vestiges of her maternal denial crumbled, replaced by raw fear. We weren't just dealing with an entitled son having a hard time. We were living with a predator who saw us as nothing more than inconvenient roadblocks on his path to our assets. Our home wasn't safe anymore. We weren't safe anymore. Then came the storm. Not just the storm in our family, but a literal tempest that descended on our valley with terrifying fury. Wind howled like a banshee, rattling the windows in their frames. Rain hammered against the roof and walls, relentless, deafening. It was the kind of night where the world outside ceases to exist, and you thank every deity you know for the safety of solid walls and a leak-free roof. We were in bed, trying to find solace in sleep after another tense, exhausting day navigating Kevin's moods and manipulations. Suddenly, around 2 in the morning, violent pounding shattered the relative quiet within the house. Our bedroom door shuddered under the blows. Kevin's voice, high-pitched, laced with manufactured panic. "Mom, Dad, wake up, quick. The pipe under the kitchen sink. It burst. Water everywhere. It's flooding. I need help. Now." Parental instinct, deeply ingrained over decades, overrides rational thought in moments like that. Fear jolted us awake. Martha and I scrambled out of bed, hearts hammering against our ribs. There was no time to think, no time to grab robes or slippers. Adrenaline surged. We rushed out of the bedroom in our pajamas, me in my thin boxers and t-shirt, Martha in her sleeveless cotton nightgown, bare feet slapping against the cool wooden floor. Kevin stood at the top of the stairs, beckoning frantically. "Hurry. It's getting really bad." He led us, half running, down the staircase, past the kitchen doorway towards the back door that opened onto the patio. "This doesn't make sense," a tiny voice whispered in my head. "The kitchen sink is that way." But Kevin was insistent, pushing us onward. "It must be coming from outside. The main drain access by the fence. Maybe it's clogged. Can you check it? Quick. I'll go shut off the main water valve." Confused, disoriented, propelled by his urgency and the roar of the storm outside, we stumbled towards the back door. He flung it open, gesturing wildly towards the far end of the dark, rain-lashed garden. "Just check that drain cover. See if anything's blocking it." He practically nudged us forward, out into the maelstrom. The instant our bare feet touched the cold, sodden concrete of the patio, the wind and rain hit us like a physical blow. We squinted into the blinding deluge, trying to make out the fence line through the sheeting rain. And then we heard it. Over the roar of the wind, a sound more chilling than any thunderclap. The distinct, final click of the deadbolt sliding home in the door behind us. We spun around, disbelief warring with a dawning, sickening horror. Kevin stood there inside. Safe, dry, warm. The frantic panic on his face was gone, wiped clean, replaced by an expression of absolute, chilling calm. A slow, deliberate, utterly smug smirk spread across his features as he looked at us, his trapped, shivering parents. Martha gasped, pressing a hand to her mouth. "Kevin, what are you doing? Let us back in. It's freezing." Her voice was thin, snatched away by the wind. He just shook his head slowly, the smirk widening into a predatory grin. "Not a chance," he said, his voice unnervingly clear through the thick glass. "Not until you agree to sign everything over. The house, the investment accounts, the whole damn lot. I've got the papers right here ready to go. Once you sign, maybe I'll think about letting you back inside before you catch pneumonia." The world tilted. This wasn't a desperate act. This was his endgame. Calculated, cruel, inhuman. Standing there, exposed, vulnerable, soaked to the bone in the icy mud, the full weight of his betrayal crashed down on me. He would actually let us freeze out here. Our own son. But then, through the blinding rain and the fog of shock, a flicker. A name. David Miller. The quiet neighbor. The man Kevin openly mocked as Mr. Boring Bureaucrat. Kevin, in his monumental arrogance, had never bothered to look beyond the surface. He had no idea. David wasn't just some city employee shuffling papers. David wasn't just the guy who helped with the lawnmower. David Miller was the chief of police for the entire city. And his house, his warm, dry, safe house, was less than 50 yards away through the mud and the tempest. Hope, sharp and fierce, surged through my veins, a jolt stronger than the cold. Kevin thought he held all the cards. He was disastrously wrong. I grabbed Martha's trembling arm, pulling her close. "Martha, listen to me. We're going next door. No, we're going to David's." We turned our backs on the monstrous tableau in our window, our smirking son holding us hostage, and began the agonizing journey across the quagmire that was once our lawn. Every step was torture. The thick, cold mud sucked at our bare feet, threatening to pull us down. The rain lashed us relentlessly, stealing our breath, chilling us to the core. Martha stumbled, and I caught her, half carrying her the last few feet. It felt like crossing a battlefield, not a suburban lawn. Finally, blessedly, we reached the relative shelter of David Miller's covered porch. We huddled together, teeth chattering violently, water streaming from our hair and clothes, pooling around our muddy feet. I didn't know if he was even home, if he'd hear us over the storm. But we had no other choice. I raised a shaking, numb fist and hammered on his front door with all the strength I had left, praying for a miracle. It felt like an eternity, but it was probably only seconds before the porch light blazed brighter, illuminating our pathetic state. The door swung open. David stood there, blinking the sleep from his eyes, dressed in unassuming pajamas. His expression shifted instantly from sleepy confusion to wide-eyed shock, then deep, immediate concern as he took in the sight of us, two elderly people, drenched, muddy, clad only in nightclothes, shivering uncontrollably on his doorstep in the middle of a hurricane. "Arthur? Martha? My God! What on earth happened? Get inside quickly." His voice was thick with alarm, genuine worry etched on his face. He helped us stumble just inside his entryway, out of the driving rain. Between violent shivers and gasps for breath, I poured out the story, the words tumbling out in a chaotic rush fueled by cold, fear, and sputtering rage. Kevin locked us out, our son, in the storm, wants the house, the money, left us. Martha had started crying quiet, heartbroken sobs that tore at my soul. David listened intently, his expression hardening with each word. The friendly, sleepy neighbor vanished before our eyes. His posture straightened. His eyes became sharp, focused. A quiet authority settled over him. "Stay right here," he said, his voice calm but firm, gently guiding us towards his living room sofa. "Let me get you some blankets. Don't worry. I'm going to handle this." He was gone for maybe 60 seconds. When he returned, the pajamas were gone. He was pulling on an official dark blue police windbreaker over a uniform shirt, the city police crest prominent on the sleeve. His badge gleamed on his belt. He picked up a handheld radio from a charging station near the door. "Dispatch, this is Chief Miller." His voice was different now. Crisp, commanding, unmistakable authority. "I have a developing situation at my home address involving neighbors. Potential unlawful imprisonment, possible elder abuse in progress. Requesting a patrol unit respond, code 3. Urgent." He clicked off the radio and looked at us, his eyes filled with a mixture of profound sympathy and steely resolve. "Okay," he said quietly. "Let's go pay your son a visit." Flashing blue and red lights were already slicing through the rain-streaked darkness as we walked back across the muddy expanse towards our house, David leading the way. The sight of that approaching patrol car sent another surge of adrenaline through me, this time not of fear but of impending justice. We reached our back door just as the first police cruiser pulled up to the curb. Kevin was still visible inside, pacing now, his smug confidence clearly rattled by the unexpected light show outside. He must have assumed we'd just freeze out there, eventually give in or wander off into the storm. He hadn't counted on David. David didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and knocked sharply on the glass panel, loud enough to be heard over the wind. "Kevin." His voice boomed, amplified by righteous anger and official command. "This is Chief of Police David Miller. Open this door. Right now." The door opened a few inches. Kevin peered out, his face a comical mask of confusion and annoyance. "What the hell is going on out here? Who are you?" Trying to bluster, trying to maintain control. Then his eyes tracked down David's jacket, fixed on the gleaming badge, lifted to David's stony face, and then darted to the uniformed officers now flanking David on the patio, their expressions grim. His jaw went slack. The blood drained from his face, leaving it a sickly, greenish white. "Chief," he stammered, the word barely a whisper. "Chief Miller? You live next door?" The arrogance shattered completely, replaced by sheer, unadulterated panic. "That's correct, son," David said, his voice dangerously quiet now. "And right now your parents are alleging you locked them out of their home in this storm under duress. That's a very serious crime. Step aside." "No." Kevin started babbling, incoherent denials tumbling out. "No. Wait. It's a misunderstanding. A family disagreement. We were arguing. They just got upset and ran outside." He gestured wildly, his eyes darting between us, shivering, half-dressed, covered in mud, and the police chief standing impassively before him. The lies were pathetic, transparent. They dissolved under the weight of the visual evidence and the sheer authority confronting him. One of the uniformed officers stepped forward. "Sir, I need you to place your hands behind your back." Kevin didn't resist. He seemed to deflate, all the fight, all the smug certainty draining out of him, leaving behind a scared, pathetic man-child caught in his own monstrous trap. Watching them click the handcuffs onto his wrists, Reading him his rights under the swirling police lights as the rain continued its relentless assault, was a moment etched forever in my memory. It wasn't triumph I felt, not entirely. It was a profound, gut-wrenching mix of relief, vindication, and the deepest sorrow a parent can feel. Justice was being served, swift and unexpected. But the cost was the final, irreparable severing of ties with our only son. The hours immediately following were a whirlwind of procedural necessities filtered through a haze of exhaustion and emotional shock. More police arrived. Paramedics checked us over, wrapping us in thick, warm blankets, murmuring words of concern about hypothermia. David, Chief Miller, stayed with us, ensuring we were okay, coordinating his officers as they secured the house, taking preliminary statements. His calm competence was a lifeline in the chaos. He spoke to us not just as a police chief, but as a neighbor, a friend, expressing his disgust at what Kevin had done while reassuring us that we were safe now. We gave formal statements later that morning down at the station, numbly recounting the events, the fear, the betrayal. The wheels of justice began to turn. Kevin was formally charged with unlawful imprisonment, reckless endangerment, and attempted coercion, the elder abuse aspect adding significant weight. A judge issued an emergency protective order immediately, forbidding Kevin from contacting us or coming anywhere near the house or us. Stepping back into our home felt strange. It was ours again, undeniably, yet the violation lingered in the air, a poisonous residue left by Kevin's cruelty. The first call we made wasn't to family or friends, but to a 24-hour locksmith. Every single lock on every door and window was replaced by midday. The second call was to a cleaning service. We needed every trace of him gone. His abandoned clothes, his expensive gadgets, the lingering scent of his cologne in the guest room, it all had to be purged. It was a necessary ritual, an attempt to reclaim the sanctity of our space. Packing his belongings into boxes felt like packing away a part of our past, a painful amputation. Faced with the overwhelming evidence, our testimony, the physical conditions, the damning witness of the chief of police himself, Kevin knew he had no defense. His lawyer negotiated a plea deal. Pleaded guilty to lesser charges, avoiding significant jail time but receiving several years of strict probation, court-ordered psychological counseling, and a hefty fine. The restraining order was made permanent. We haven't seen or spoken to him since that night. Martha grieves for the son she lost long before he locked us out, but even she agrees there's no going back. Some betrayals cut too deep to ever heal. Life has settled into a new normal. Quieter perhaps. We're more cautious, maybe a little less trusting of the world than we once were. The locks feel more solid, the alarm system more necessary. But the fear has receded. Our home feels like a sanctuary again, maybe even more so, having defended it from such an intimate threat. Our bond, Martha's and mine, forged over nearly 5 decades, proved stronger than Kevin's greed. We appreciate the simple routines, the quiet mornings, the shared cups of coffee with a depth we didn't know before. And we have a new, unexpected friendship. David Miller often stops by now, not just as the chief but as David, the neighbor. We share coffee on the porch, talk about gardening, about life. His quiet presence next door is no longer unremarkable. It's a source of comfort, a reminder that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. Kevin's arrogance, his utter failure to see the decent, formidable man living right next door, was his undoing. It was perfect, almost biblical karma. Our retirement isn't the carefree picture we painted years ago, but there is peace. There is security. And there is the profound, if bittersweet, satisfaction of knowing that justice, in its own way, prevailed. We learned a harsh lesson about entitlement and the darkness that can hide behind a familiar face, but we survived. Our foundation held.